Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to week 2 of our Federal Conference podcast series, The Art of the Possible. Today's topic is one that really excites me. It's talking about exhibitors. So there's nothing more than I love to talk more than, and I think my colleagues would let you know that I like to talk about is exhibitors and expos. And with that, the buzzword, or really I should say buzzwords of the event vocabulary these days is virtual events. So it's no secret that our industry has been forced to take a look at how we can take what we've currently planned as an in-person meeting and, dare I say, pivot. I know everyone's sick of that word, but to a virtual event experience. So it is what we're doing. When doing this, though, I think what, in my opinion, one of the hardest pieces for me to reconcile in my brain is how do we really keep our exhibitors involved and make sure that they can see a return on their investment? So today we have with us Lisa Rothman from SAIC. She's going to give us her thoughts on this topic from an exhibitor's point of view. Lisa is currently a senior principal team lead of exhibits and sponsorships at SAIC. Her team is responsible for the management and execution of SAIC trade shows and sponsorships. Lisa has a bachelor's in communications from Muhlenberg College, is a certified trade show marketer from Northern Illinois University, has completed her certificate in marketing from Georgetown University, and is currently pursuing her project management professional certificate, her PMP. Before joining SAIC, she worked at various associations and in the telecom sector. Lisa got the event bug during her college years when she interned at MTV Networks and their conference and events department, and she hasn't looked back since. During her free time, she enjoys running, visiting the Virginia vineyards, and spending quality time with her family, friends, and golden doodle, Miss Pearl. Lisa, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me today and chit chat about exhibitors and what you're looking for. And I have to say, I really want your resume. I'm not sure how you managed to accomplish so much in such a short amount of time, and I'm super jealous, but you are so accomplished, and I'm super excited to talk today.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for having me today. This is such a dynamic time we're in right now. And as you can see, I've been in this industry, I think since I've been 20 years old when I started interning. And so much of the time we spend is with either our exhibit teams, our show management teams, is it meeting planners we're working with when we're traveling. And so they become our extended family. I know in the fall and the spring, I spend most of my time with my account executives from the different exhibit houses we work with, or the supervisors who are setting up our booths with us. And so when someone reached out to me to say, hey, would you be talking from the exhibitor perspective? I was like, absolutely, because we're all in this together right now. And I know it sounds so cliche because we're all hearing that on the news, but in our industry, it's really been a trying time. You're seeing companies having to furlough some of the exhibit staff just because we've had to cancel so many of our events, and it breaks our hearts to do that right now. So we are going to have to pivot. We are going to have to do some virtual events right now. We will get back. We will go live. But until then, we're going to have to kind of change our mindset a little bit. And so it's hard. It's hard for us too, because when you're used to producing live events, it's how do you take that live experience and turn it virtual? And so, it's not just me making these decisions. When we're working at SAIC, I work with a great team of other marketing staff, social media, press. So we all really kind of got together when all this hit and said, what are we going to do? We have quite a few shows that we've had to cancel. So as a team, how are we going to pivot and do this for our stakeholders, for our customers? So I think it's a great time, a great discussion, and any perspective I can give, I'm happy to do that. And this is exciting. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I mentioned already earlier that I love talking about expos, and what I really love about expos, or even just any element of the expo to a conference, is the buildup, the taking nothing, right? An empty room, building it up to this amazing looking event, and then more so the energy once everything gets kicked off, the energy of the expo floor. There's just, to me, nothing more exciting about that. But I think when I walk away, you just mentioned this, is that I wondered to myself, in a virtual event environment, how do I keep my exhibitors happy and coming back, and especially in a virtual event experience? So how do I do that? And so at the end, the shorter version of that is, how do I make sure that my exhibitors can then see the return on their investment? Because it's a hard thing, I think, sometimes to get everyone to understand the concept of virtual events all across the board, even from an attendee perspective. But then how do I really make sure that I can sell that to the exhibitors and make sure that they understand that I'm going to be able to try to give them, I'm going to give them to the best of my ability, the availability of being able to reach as many attendees as possible. So if you wouldn't mind, can we dig in and I can ask you a few questions?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's go. So what 3 tips would you give our planners listening today involving exhibitors when they are now shifting their events into a virtual event environment?
Excellent. And again, this is so timely because these were the things when you all reached out to me to do this, we were having these exact conversations at work. So in our team meetings, and I think the first thing we all said right away was promoting the event. How are we going to reach our specific target market? And in my mind, again, I'm the one in the meetings was, we're taking a live event and making virtual. How are we going to do that? Because I want to make sure that we can still be able to interact with our customers. And so that is so important to us. So if we're, and also I was stating, it's not just us, who these shows got canceled. So there's 1,000 other exhibitors out there who are going to be going virtual. So one of the questions I actually asked an association yesterday, this exact question, how are you all going to promote the event? So you're creating this virtual strategy, but how are you going to promote it? How are you going to reach our specific target? Do you have a database you're using? Are you using the registration list from the live trade show that just got canceled? If you don't have a robust list, are you partnering with an organization that does have a list? Because that's so important. It's no different than when we do a live trade show where most of us have call plans we're promoting the event in advance because we want quality leads in our booth. Well, we want quality leads in our virtual booth as well. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to do that? So the promotion of the event, is it going to be social media? Is the association going to create a social media campaign for us that we then can piggyback on? Are you going to do a press room virtually, or will you do, special press briefings for certain exhibitors if you pay a certain amount for virtual? Those are all the things that we were talking about, really that promotion and reaching that specific target audience. Very important for us. I think. Yeah,
that's a good point. I think that's one is if you were only a short amount of time out from your event, you probably already have a lot of people registered for the event already. So then how do you make sure that you can still keep those same attendees? And then how do you build on it, right? So how do you continue to go out to your membership? So that makes perfect sense to me.
Exactly. And that came up, again, one of the things I know I talk about a lot too is collaboration, that pick your marketing team's brain. That's what we did, for these shows, because we have a digital team that we talk to. So getting different people's perspectives on your own team and our stakeholders is what we found too, because every stakeholder has a different thought. Each show is a little bit different. So that was really important for us. Also, this you're going to hear me say over and over and over again, but it's metrics. What's the actionable data you're going to provide to us? So before the show, are you going to say, let's say we're going to do a breakout session or a webinar. Are you going to let us know who's already registered for that specific breakout or that webinar? Will we get some analytics on that, especially after the show? What kind of list are you going to give us? Are you going to give us, were they decision makers? Do we get titles? Just like a booth, my mind always goes to the booth, which kind of helps me then go to virtual. Is it just a bunch of trinket takers, as we say, just kind of pulling a giveaway? Or are these people coming into this virtual experience really the ones who can make decisions? Or are they an influencer? Is there a way you can track that for us? So metrics is going to be very important for us. And after the show, will you provide a registration list? Just like, when we go live, it depends in, the industry you're in. Sometimes you can't get a registration list. It's all for non-privacy acts. But if you can, what kind of information are you going to provide to us? So really that data, and we like actionable data. So it's kind of real-time data. What can we do with it? And then what can we do with it, for future events too? So that data is going to be really important. And the other question that came up quite a bit in our own teams, and I brought up quite a bit, is how long is this going to live for? Especially if it's something like a podcast just today. Today we're filming. Is this going to sit up somewhere for a month, or are you guys going to take this down right away? We want to make sure that our attendees can actually see this. And how long is this going to live for? And will you provide metrics, continue to provide metrics for us for the next month or so? So that's really important for us. Those are some of the questions that we were asking ourselves quite a bit. The other one that came up a lot is the platform. And there's so much technology out there. Most people are working from home. We want to know what platform you're using, which was very important. And can we also make sure we can do a test run? Because I know from experience a few weeks ago, I sat on a webinar and it was only 30 minutes and it took 20 minutes to get that webinar working. And then they ended up just having to shut it down. And it's not to anyone's fault right now because so many of us are working from home, but it's really important that we understand what the platform is. Will you have a rehearsal for speakers or for if there's a panel that we're doing? Because for so many folks, this is very different speaking on a podcast versus doing it live. So, we want to kind of understand that platform. We want to make sure the technology works. If it doesn't work, that's okay. Is there a backup plan? Is there a plan B if this isn't going to work? So we want to make sure we kind of have an idea of what that's going to look like. The other part, again, like I said, we've taken a live event and we're turning it virtual. So we're missing that great one-on-one customer experience. So how can we make this virtual event more personable? How can we make it more interactive? So when we ask about your platform, is it going to have a polling capability? Will it have gamification? Can we do games? We're going to want to see something that's a bit more interactive for what we do, just because we really want to be able to connect. So at the beginning of a session, can we poll who's on that session? And then we can kind of get an idea of who's there, make it more personable. So that's going to be really important to us, is having that immersive experience. So those are some of the things that we're kind of really been talking, out loud in our own conversations. And these are questions I've actually asked folks lately as we're deciding how we're going to go about doing our virtual strategy, or those are some of the questions we've been asking as a team at SAIC to our vendors.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I think some of those things, some of those metrics that you're involving and some of those ideas for a platform, I actually think sometimes the virtual event world could actually speak more to that if done properly than even an in-person event could do, which I think leads a lot of new opportunities for everyone to start thinking maybe even the possibility of hybrid events. I know, absolutely. And you also mentioned, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. I think the opportunity to also, you mentioned about get that dry run rehearsal. That's actually something that we've been talking about in our office a lot, because that's something we do for our clients and our exhibitors and speakers and all those things, because we're not just talking about a broadcasted space with lots of people. We're talking about you and I in our home offices, right? That's probably going to be the same familiar setup for the foreseeable future. So it's really important to make sure that we're testing those things and getting it right. So as best as we can, obviously, something could happen. And to your point, if it does, what's the next step? Because there needs to be one, so that everybody isn't just like, what do I do now? And so I think what I hear you saying is, in all of this, is that you want the planner to come to you as an exhibitor and start really framing what they want to do with the structure of their event, and really talk specifically through, if they've chosen a platform, exactly what their platform can do so that they can speak to these things. Is that correct? That's what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we're hearing. You heard it perfect. And from our own personal experience right now, from the first week of March to the first week of May, we had over 7 large events, from trade shows from 20 by 20 up to 30 by 30. Most of them included hospitality, meeting rooms. And in between those events, we had several smaller events going on as well. And within 2 or 3 days, they were all canceled. And so we had to quickly, as a team, do our own, what I call cleanup, just as the planner side. I've been on the planner side, so I can only imagine what the planner side's going through right now.
Yeah.
And our exhibit houses are going through. We were going through it in a different way because we had freight we were trying to track down. We had promos in advanced warehouses. Some got early to a hotel. We were trying to see what the cost impact was going to be. We were trying to see what the loss would be, a plus up. If something was canceled in May, we might have a little extra money because maybe we can stop going to print. We can stop, maybe let's not sign that final deposit. Let's hold off on some spend so we can turn those dollars into virtual. So we were trying to do a cleanup at the same time, people right away saying, we have to go virtual right away. We need to go virtual. And then we were wondering, well, what are the associations going to do? Do we go virtual on our own? Or do we wait to see what these associations are going to do so we can piggyback? Or is it a little bit of both? And so that's what came up with some of these, we were asking ourselves, how are we going to promote the event? If we do promote it, the registration list, what kind of platform? And that's how all these questions started. And then we had these internal conversations as a team. And then right at that same point, the association started coming out. So, and we were getting, like everybody, a lot of folks were coming to us pretty quickly, and we just needed to take a minute, to see what was going to be the best platform, what was going to be the best approach. And we're still working through that. But we kind of had it, and also the cost. That's what, even to me, it's still new to me, and I'm still learning, is most of all, I will say, everybody has been nothing but tremendous from the association side on, giving us options if we're going to refund booth space, or you can roll over to next year. So we were trying to kind of figure that piece out. But then we were slowly starting to get asked, we're going to have our virtual event. My question right away to them is do we need to pay for that virtual event? Or are you going to take our dollars and roll some of our dollars from the booth space into the virtual event? And so that was something that we're still working through, because we're trying to figure out, do we spend more dollars, or work those, and they're having from the planner side. So maybe this is a great conversation for all of us. So those are some of the things that we were trying to work through as we had to, shut down some of these shows very quickly. And then the other piece was, as some got canceled, they said 2 weeks later, we got an announcement that some have been rescheduled again. So for late October. Yeah. Now we are so these are the things from the exhibitor side of, so do we go virtual, and then we also go live again in October with a chance that might get canceled? Yeah. So from the exhibitor perspective, those are all the questions that are running through our heads right now.
Yeah. That, and there's so much of that, I think, running through the planners too. And so I think you are right. Everybody's in that together. But I really think what's amazing is, even, SAIC and yourself, like your willingness to see the big picture of the event and recognize that even though the event might be taken into a virtual component, that it's still really important for those exhibitors to support those associations, and therefore the associations and all other groups to also support the exhibitors, because that's really what truly makes a successful event overall. So, let's say the planner has a vision for their event. They now have a platform. What's next? What should they consider when creating their virtual event from your perspective? So you kind of started to dive into that. So if we could kind of just keep going down the lane that you were just going, and kind of get into more specifics, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. We love, like you, I get really excited to talk about exhibits. So you can just reel me in if you need to. That's not a problem.
No, I'm not going to be the one that reels you in. It's not going to be me.
It's great.
So go for it. Give us all you have.
So hopefully in 6 months we can be at a lobby bar doing this, right? So no, absolutely. I think one of the things, actually, some of this came from my own personal experience, and that's kind of the best way, is we've been getting asked to do virtual events. And I had an email a couple of weeks ago. It was so much information. It must have been 4 different documents, Word documents. There was a PowerPoint, there was a link, and we were just getting inundated. And all I thought to myself is, I just want to see a service kit. We're very detailed oriented people, or I want a quick FAQ. We're used to kind of being able to quickly open up a document, seeing what you need, when you need it, and how fast you need something turned around. And so I saw all this information. I'm like, I'm just going to shut it down. I just want to. So for us, it goes back to, could we get a virtual service kit saying, okay, we're 4 weeks out from this event. Right now, we're going to need your logo right away. We're going to need to connect with your social media manager, really outline some of the things that we're going to need to provide you as quickly as possible, just like what we would do for a live event. The other things that we were, thinking through is, do we have sponsorship packages? We like packages. We like our discounts like everybody. So if we went to a virtual exhibit space, would that also give us a couple of free registrations? And maybe could we also at a discount get a thought leadership position? Could we get a couple webinars? So really looking at those packages would be great. Any type of discount, if we sign up for a virtual event, would we get a discount when we actually go back to real booth space? These are just, thoughts and ideas, but in my mind, it's no different than when we're looking at our trade show schedule and we're working with associations. So it's that same concept, but taking that virtual. But if there's one thing I can say that would mean a lot is giving us some type of service kit, very quick outline of what you're going to need. That probably when you do as many shows as most of us do on the exhibit side, we like to see things quick and broken down. So that would be a huge help for us.
Yeah. I think, and you just touched on this perfectly, is that just because the event goes virtual doesn't mean the planners shouldn't be giving you some sort of kit, because whether it's in person or in a virtual environment, you still need to have things that are measurable. So that means that there's an agreement between the two of you that they're going to do their best to provide you X, Y, and Z, and that what other place to put that in than a service kit, just because there isn't an ability to, order carpet right now or order a table doesn't mean that they shouldn't be providing a kit in some form or fashion. So I think that is really, really, really insightful information. And I want to go back actually, Lisa, for just a minute, and I want to talk about kind of more to the platform piece. Are you thinking, from your perspective, do you think it's important for an exhibitor to see the trade show floor in a 3D virtual type experience, or is that not necessarily something that you think is important to SAIC specifically?
I think it depends on the event. For SAIC right now, when we talked to some of our stakeholders, what really was important was the breakout sessions and the webinars. For right now, that doesn't mean things might not change. We definitely want to be able to maybe have a booth experience in some way. Did it need to be a very in-depth live, exhibit or virtual exhibit where you can kind of walk through and hover over? That wasn't, so critical for us. It was more what we found. Again, for now, things can absolutely change. It was those breakout sessions, that thought leadership. Can we do a webinar? And we found that would be a little bit more impactful right now. Also, it was so quick, the turn on some of this. So I think it really depends on your industry. I think for some folks, it might be very important. We didn't find it right now to be as critical, but that could definitely change. For us, though, we really, those thought leadership going to those individual breakout sessions and panels is really important. Is what we have found.
As you just said that, I'm just thinking to myself, like maybe even an opportunity for like a demo day. Cause I think if there's something that, and even like a short presentation, maybe not even a long presentation, I wonder if that's something that organizations could be thinking about putting into their agenda about maybe it's a half a day and everybody gets 10, 15 minutes to be able to, I think that's that engagement piece, right? That ability to put it in the face of the attendees that it's on their agenda. It's not having it be, well, here's a tab that shows that the exhibitors are here. It actually kind of gets them more in their face. And I think that's a really good, experience for everybody to work together. And the fact that truly the event organizers need the exhibitors, but also the attendees need the exhibitors, because there's so much value that exhibitors bring to the attendees in either a form of a service or a product that I think if we lost that component in a virtual event experience, I think it's a loss to the attendees more than anything else, because I think there's just so much value in what the opportunities that bring to, and knowledge that comes to that. So
absolutely. I love that. Oh, sorry. I love that idea. So it's not just, a push where you click on a website and there's a big exhibit hall and at your own time, you can just kind of hover over. I like that idea of, you get a half a day and you know what your set time is and somebody gets to present their booth to you. That's a great idea. And then maybe the second half of the day, you get a breakout session and you can do a deeper dive into some of the capabilities you just saw. Right. So both of those opportunities are interactive. They're both, there is engagement, and that I love that idea. I think that's a great idea.
Let's just take a less passive role as the idea. Lisa, I think it would be really great if we could take a few questions at this point. I think this might be a good time for that if you have a few moments to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Yeah. Let's see. Great. Let's open it up. Who has questions? Okay, here's one. When do you make decisions on what shows you attend?
Virtual shows, or are you talking about live shows?
In this instance, let's talk virtual, just because that's the experience that we're in, or even a hybrid. Let's also talk hybrid, because I think that's also where we're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we're gonna see a lot of hybrid. I mean, for us, we start building out our show list. We'll start this summer. I mean, for live events, starting for January 2021. Wow. Yeah, we'll start kind of looking at all that come August timeframe. We'll start building out that list. This year's going to be really different, obviously, because of what's happened. But that's usually when SAIC will start, is the August timeframe. And we'll probably do the same again this year. I don't see that changing. I think this is just my view. I think we need to have a plan A and a plan B for the rest of the year for our shows. I know we're starting to plan our fall shows. We're a little bit behind just because of what's going on, but we'd start to plan all of our, we kick off our season in August. And so usually we've already started to plan those shows. It's almost May. So everybody's a bit behind, but we're already again, this is Lisa's view. I've already said we need a plan A and plan B for shows that are in August and September, because we don't know what's necessarily going to happen. We're planning on going to everything. We're ready to get back out there, but we just don't know if that's going to happen.
I think that's important for the planners to have a plan A and plan B too, and be working towards that, because you're right. It's not just from the exhibitor's point of view, it's all together. We don't know what the next month looks like. We don't know what the next 3 looks like. I think we're all hoping for the same goal, to move past this sooner than later, but that's great. So, all right, that's enough. Let's see if we have another one. What is the most important decision? So in that decision-making process about what you're going to go to attend a show, what do you think is the most important in your choosing?
I think it's for all industries. I mean, I don't think it's just for us. I think it's for every industry out there. It's looking at, when we go to shows, we're going shows to reach our customer. We want to make sure that we are attracting the right customer. We're giving our customer what they want to see. We're showing the right capabilities. So it's really looking at what your business objectives are and strategy, and ensuring your shows are matching to that. So we're pretty strategic about why we go to a show. It's to support a customer. If it's to we want to meet with a new customer. So I think, like all industries, it's really being strategic and looking at your company's strategy and objectives and really aligning your shows to that.
I think maybe that even goes into why it's really important for them to give you maybe some pre-event metrics, or even if they can't give you the specific data, just enough to say what company is what type of titles, so that you guys can be what they're gearing towards marketing to as well. That would help you. So.
Exactly. And for me, it's always looking at who's attending these shows. And that's another great point. It's let's look at your past performance of an event. If it's a new trade show, you might have that, but for most of these shows out there, let's look at your past performance, who've been your past exhibitors, but who've been your past attendees, and were they the influencers? Were they the decision makers? So that also goes into when we're looking at shows.
Yep. All right, so here's another one. If our conference is typically held over 3 days, how do you suggest we handle the schedule of our virtual meetings? This one is a topic that is very popular right now. Yeah. How do we change our schedule for virtual meetings?
I think one of the ideas we actually just talked about on this call, which I really like, is maybe on day one, you have that trade show, the half a day where you can have exhibitors actually talk about what they were going to show in their booth, and then on day 2 and day 3, you go in and you do some breakout sessions, that do a deeper dive, where people can sign up to go to different breakouts. And the question that I've asked is, let's say there's 4 breakouts, somebody, wants to go. It's happened to me when I want to go look at a show. If there's 4 breakout sessions that are happening at the exact same time that I want to see, can I go back and look at something later? And so that comes really back to how long is something going to be on demand? And I think that's something true for us. I'm also curious, keynotes. I mean, often why like anybody goes to these shows, it's you're hearing what's going on in industry. So we still want to hear from those speakers that you had planned. I mean, that's important to all of us. So if it's outlining day 1, you have that keynote speaker who's going to kick off that event, and maybe right then and there, they can outline, okay, for the rest of today, you all are going to have an immersive experience on the trade show floor. And then tomorrow you might have your second keynote. And then we're going to start doing kind of a deeper dive into specific topics and thought leadership, and do it over a 3-day period. Is someone going to sit in front of their computer all day long? I mean, I doubt it. I mean, I don't think I would, but that's just me. So I mean, we have conflicting, everyone has a lot going on right now. So thinking about that time, that time of everybody.
Yeah, I think that's something we've been talking about is trying to keep it less than, I think the standard is actually, I think 56 minutes is the average, I think, right now. And that's involving Q&A just to make sure you don't lose people. But we've also heard some interesting things about maybe even building in some time for like a quick exercise moment. You could even hire somebody to come in and do some of those things that people could do in their office or their living room. They would be more comfortable doing that. And obviously they wouldn't necessarily do it as often in an in-person event. So I think there's a lot to be discovered, and actually a lot of opportunity. Again, back to the hybrid, the opportunity if you are able to take your virtual event longer and putting it on demand and doing it in a cost-effective way too, because in an in-person event that can sometimes be very costly to do it completely. So, having a little bit of that hybrid opportunity too. So great. That was a great question.
Absolutely.
I don't see any other questions, and we are just about at 30 minutes. So I think this might be a good time for us to start wrapping up. And Lisa, I just want to thank you for taking your time today, and for all of us joining all of you joining with us today. Just remember, we recorded this podcast, and so that way it's easy for you to go and look on our LinkedIn. We're going to put it out there for easy sharing. And next week on Tuesday for session 3 in our podcast series, we're going to discuss what challenges face association meetings today, as well as tomorrow, and how are they managing it. That's going to be with Sharon Sullivan, the Vice President of Brand Experience at Leading Age. So Lisa, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if anybody needs to reach out to you, I know they can definitely message you on LinkedIn. I think you mentioned that earlier, so they can still reach out to you if they have any additional questions coming up. And thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.